Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to Spinnerbait Fishing Basics. My name is Jonathan. I'm part of the Navionics Marine Specialist Division. Tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I use spinner baits and the particular techniques and features that I look for in the spinner baits and what I keep on my boat. I'm going to talk to you probably for 10, 15, 20 minutes on that. And then at the end of it, I'm going to open it up for questions that you can type in the Q&A. And I'm going to go through them and answer your questions so I can kind of help out and figure, and answer what you guys want to know about spinnerbait fishing and how I use it and all that. First of all, as I'm sure you've noticed when you go into like Cabela's and Bass Pro Shop or your local tackle store, there's about 10, 15 different manufacturers of spinnerbaits and also a wide variety of color patterns and blades and dual blades and all that. Me personally, I actually use a local company. I live in Pittsburgh, PA. I use a local company who actually make the spinnerbaits for me. Partially because I can have them do certain paint on the heads, use specific wire, use specific skirts, and also use different blades that you can't buy. A lot of the companies over the tape in Cabela's and Bass Pro don't include on their spinnerbaits. The company I use is Slambo Lures. They're out of Apollo. But a little bit on what I do with the spinnerbaits for fishing. I always pair them on either a heavy or even sometimes depending on what the cover I'm pulling the spinnerbait through an extra heavy rod. Normally about at the smallest I'll use is a 7-footer. I sometimes go like 7.2, 7.3. Also, I pair it with a real slow ratio reel, just so I don't burn it through it, and I let the blades do what I let the blades spin freely in the water and don't pull and don't basically cause the spinnerbait to turn end over end while pulling it through. There's a couple things when you're choosing on a specific lake or body of water that you got to keep in mind when you're choosing your spinnerbait. A lot of it is water clarity. If you're in a real clear, like a real clear lake such as Champlain, Oneida, or even Erie at times, you can get away with using lighter colors, such as like a salt pepper look on a spinnerbait, and also you can also with that match the specific blade metal that you're using to that condition. If it's a lighter water, I'll personally use the salt pepper one. I'll pair it with a silver blade and and then depending if the fish are hitting it and fully taking it, I may or may not throw on a trailer hook off the back. One tool that I like to use whenever I attach my trailer hooks, I don't know if you guys have heard of it, it's called the Hook Pal. It's a little machine stick about that, about 8 inches long. You can put a little disc in it and pop the disc on the hook, put the hook on, pop a second disc on, which won't slide around and won't let the disc pop off the spinnerbait hook when you put it on. And the Hook Pal is actually just featured in the current issue of FLW Bass Magazine in the terminal tackle section in it. Also on them, I don't normally run a trailer like a Zoom trailer on or anything like that, but if I do, I normally run the split tail one, and sometimes I'll dip it in the yellow garlic spike it just to give it a kind of a scent to it and a little bit of just a little bit highlighted tips on the back to make it look and stand out a little bit. Something I found when choosing which spinnerbait also to use in the body of water, I try to pay attention to the size of the minnows and that the bass or that are currently in the lake that the bass would probably be feeding on that time. That being said, I keep 2 to 3 sizes of spinner baits in my boat at all times. This one here that I've been holding, it's towards a medium-sized spinner bait that I'll keep in the boat. But I also have had a lot of success, and even on smaller lakes, using a Strike King Mini King, which I'm sure you all have seen them in your local tackle store. They're really small, but with that bait, I've caught big bass with it just because they're feeding on smaller minnows at the time, and it mimics the smaller minnows coming through the water. Some of the different blade choices that I like to use. This one, I'll start with the one I've been holding. This one here is actually a blade you don't see too often in stores. It's a Dakota blade. What it kind of does is it makes a specific different pulsating motion through the water, which I found to be really effective. It's something different that the fish don't see every day. I've had it where I've scared bass, threw it in front of them, and they still turn around and hit on a reaction strike. Some of the other ones I like to use, these ones are Magnum Willows. It's hard to see on the webcam, but they're fluted at the end. They have this little bit of a triangle shaped fluted area on it. Those I like to run dual blades on it. The company I use, they basically will spray them by any color you want them. This particular one is one of my favorite colors to use in about any condition. I've had luck on it. It's a Fire Tiger. I have them do the Magnum Willows also in chartreuse just to make it stand out a little bit. On something like this, I normally will run the trailer hook off the back, just because if they're coming and swiping at a blade that's all the way down here, they might miss that initial hook up top and pull the skirt. And that trailer hook in the back, a lot of times I'll hook them on that if they're short striking or hitting the blades. Something else too that I like to keep in mind also when I'm fishing the spinnerbait, you can keep multiple skirts in your boat for the same heads. And I like doing that because if you get them a couple color variations, you might find that a certain day one color variation works better than the other. And if you keep them a bunch of variety in your boat, it's as simple as just popping it right off the hook, pulling it off, and slipping a new colored skirt on. That saves a lot of time when you're fishing on having to change the skirts, and just changing the skirt instead of having to take off a whole entire spinner blade just to switch it up for color. Another spinner bait that I use that's kind of it's a little bit different than what you'll see in a tackle store. It's more of a hand-tied, more of like a hand-tied skirt on it. It's made out of the glitter streamers that you can use for fly fishing to tie flies, and also some mylar threads. Nice thing with those is they're really full. The skirts, you can get them real full, and the way they glitter and kind of move throughout the water, it's a lot different than using a silicone skirt or any of that. And on this particular one, I like running the Willow blades chrome plated, and they have a little bit of a sort of like a multi-flake on them and then cleared. And he also chrome plated. I get the heads chrome plated just to give it a more of a shiner appearance as it's being pulled through the water. Now, if I'm fishing a lake where it's not clear or it's a little bit murky, a lot of times I'll do one of two things. I'll either pull that Fire Tiger through the water just because it kind of stands out a little bit, or another thing that I found a lot that works a lot is matching the stain in the water. If it's dark and murky, I'll throw something a little bit with a darker sheen to it. And if it's also low visibility, I'll throw a Colorado blade, normally size 5. This particular one, I had them put a like a film on it to give a little bit of a different appearance going through the water. But I'll use a Colorado blade about a size 5 because it gives a more of a chatter going through the water. Throws off more vibration and makes a bigger ruckus. Now, with the spinnerbaits, you can fish them a lot of different ways. Some of the ways I like to fish them, one would be if the bass are not active or kind of in that coming out of winter mode or really lethargic and sluggish that day, I'll slow roll them. And what I mean by that is I'll cast them out and just really slowly retrieve them to where you could feel them bumping the bottom the whole way. And in that, it kind of, in a way, almost mimics like a pulling a jig through the bottom, but you also have the spinner going to give a little bit more flash in the water and to draw the attention of the fish. Another way that I like to fish them, kind of in like a shake and bake technique, you pull them real quick and you just let them drop through the water column. A lot of times what will happen is you'll pull by the fish, you'll get their attention, and when you stop it and it drops, they'll hit it then. That normally, I've had that work to pull some reaction bites out when it's been hard to get a hit. And it's a technique where it takes a little bit of using it and figuring out exactly how long to pull it and then how long to let it drop depending on the water depth you're in. Also with the spinner baits, I've used them around seaweed beds and all that, just pulling them through, mimics a minnow coming through it or a school of minnows going through. Open water, if you can find bait balls, if the fish start blowing up on them, you can throw that through and get a good hit on it. Something else that I like to use them for that's a little, I don't know how many people do it or not, but I've had a lot of luck doing it. If you can find fallen timber that's coming straight out from the shore, kind of perpendicular to shore, I've had a lot of luck throwing them right down the sides of the timber, slow rolling it, burying it up a little bit, and the fish will actually, as it goes down, come out and grab it. It was a way that I found that I could kind of fish structure quicker and still get real good results on it. There's also, I mean, you can also do it around docks. That's always stuff like that. Any of that always works really well for me and all doing that. I normally, like, I know you look on the market, you see some of them that have up to 5, 6 blades on them. I've never thrown one that big. About the most I've thrown is the most I keep in the boat on lid 2, unless I go down south and I'll put a 3 or 4 in. But I've rarely used those to comment too much on them. Some other stuff that I've done to them, on occasion I'll throw on some liquid mayhem just to give it a bit of a scent trail going through the water. That helps out if it's a little bit of a slower day and you get a lot of the fish that just follow it but won't really hit it. I'll put a little bit on in the skirt and that'll be able to help. That normally helps me entice the fish to give it the little extra effort and grab it. Now, when I'm looking at in the store, or like if I'm looking, if I'd be looking to buy one in the store, some of the stuff I like to look for on them, I like to take a look at the swivels where the blades are. Some of them use a nice streamlined swivel where if you're pulling it through thick weeds, the seaweed and stuff won't wrap in it, and basically you won't be sitting there cleaning the swivel every 20 casts to keep the blade moving. Something else I like to look for is what metal the actual wire is made out of, because you know, a lot of them are stainless. I've had a couple of them actually being made out of titanium, and one of the properties kind of titanium is it shimmers a little bit in the water and puts a little bit extra vibration out just from the metal. So I try if I can, and the one Slambo Lures uses titanium for me on some of mine, and it kind of helps with the vibration part on it. Something else to look for on them is how the skirts are attached. A lot of the cheaper ones are attached by a gum band. And you got to keep in mind, if you're using it a lot and changing skirts a lot, that gum band will eventually break. I like to get skirts that they actually fuse them all together, so you have this nice, unique, this nice kind of collar on it. And I found those last longer if you take skirts on and off, and they also hold up more to fish and all that pulling at. Something that I've yet to find on a spinnerbait, but I've had a couple skirts made with this material. It's actually the silicone, but it has like a tire track to it, or a waffle kind of thing to it. And I've made a couple skirts out of that. Lure Craft sells it, and it actually, the whole skirt vibrates a lot more going through the water just because of the water being pulled over those ripples in the silicone strands on the skirt. Right now, I'm going to open it up to the question and answer part. So if any of you want to type in questions, I'll have them popped up here, and I will answer anything you guys want to know that I haven't covered about spinnerbait fishing. Okay, the first question that came up is basically talking about a water condition, clear water, and in the summer and they're deep. Something like that, I would go to, let's see here, I'd go to a heavier head on it. More to get it down deeper quicker. If it's clear water, I kind of would go with a more natural looking one, something like, a shiner with a lighter blade like a silver, and I'd try to get it down and let it sink a little bit, or actually you'd have to see kind of where, I'd have to see where in the water column they generally are. If they're on the bottom or in the bottom portion, I'll let it sink, and then I'll slowly pull it through there, see if that works. If not, I'll throw it down and then pull it a little bit quicker just to see if they want it a little bit higher off the bottom. But with clear water and in the summer, I would normally throw something like that one that looks like a shiner, or even that white peppered one. That's another one that I throw a lot. I've had good success on them on lakes like Champlain. Also with the white pepper one up on Champlain in particular, I found one that had that white pepper skirt with a couple blue strands in it, and I've had a lot of success on it. Kind of mimics a shiner. And the questioner was, do I need to let the spinnerbait sink with fishing deep smallmouth? I would, but as I let it sink, I would keep my finger on the line, because if you're marking a lot of them, a lot of good smallmouth down there, a lot of times they will hit it on the drop, and if you're not feeling the line, you might miss them. Because I've had it up on Erie and in Champlain and on Oneida where I've casted out 2 schools of them, and as it drops and you have the blade spinning on the way down, they've actually come up and hit it there. But if they don't hit it on the way down, I would definitely let it sink and see where in the water column they are. I wouldn't pull it across the top. I normally start, giving it like 3 or 4 count, maybe even longer. And once you kind of get the idea of where they want to hit it at, just remember that when you cast it out to do like a 3, 4, or whatever count you found that they liked it at, because that'll make sure that that particular bait gets to that depth. And then just kind of keep also in mind your retrieve on it, which that's kind of why I like to use a slower reel, because I have a tendency with a fast reel to retrieve it too quick, and it pulls it right back right back up to a higher area in the column. Next question is, do you use spinnerbaits throughout the spring, summer, and fall? Personally, I do. In the spring, not as much as the summer and the fall, but up in PA here, in the summer, I'll throw it down in the summer and fall a lot. I'll actually throw it down the trees, like I was saying, pulling them out from the shore, and I'll also throw it around docks. And if you can find some shallow grass, I'll pull it through there, just because virtually, if you get a one that's they're virtuous, so you can pull it through that stuff and not get caught in it and get something down a little deeper. What about fishing through heavy cover? We're talking about like thick seaweed patches. Normally, if I'm fishing something like that, I'll use a real heavy one, and I will also throw it with braid, a stronger braid, and actually go up even maybe from a heavy rod to like an extra heavy, or even a little bit higher than that, just for the fact that the braid will actually help you cut through it, help cut through some of that thick stuff. And if you get one in there, you can basically lay into it and horse it out, and you don't got to worry about breaking line or any of that if you hook one deep in that stuff. When you throw it around, would you stay away from trailers, or I don't understand the ending of it, but if I'm just throwing it, I normally will just, depends the size. If it's a small one, I'll throw it without a trailer. If I'm going to like the ones that I've been showing you, depending on how far back the blades and the skirt are, I'll sometimes throw a trailer hook on it. For putting like crayfish trailers or zoom, like a half a zoom fluke trailer on it, I don't do that often. If I'm going to do something like that, I normally do that on a chatterbait. I rarely do something like that on a spinnerbait, but that's just me. I know there's people out there that do it, and they have good success doing it as well. What kind of line do you use? I use a German line. It's called Ball 6 fishing line. When I'm throwing a spinnerbait, I'll actually use a fluorocarbon. Reason being, it helps weigh it down a bit and keep it down. So, I mean, that's what I've always had work. But like I said, if I'm in real thick cover, I'll throw it on a braid, like a 30-pound braid or something like that. If it's on braid, I normally use fins, wind tamer. I've never had any problems or issues with it, and it's always stood up to what I could throw at it. What weight do you use mostly, and why? Normally, I think about every one of them I just showed you is a 3/8. Yeah, it's a 3/8 of an ounce, and I use those mostly just for up around where I'm at. A lot of the lakes and the stuff you're fishing at aren't that deep. I think most of them are deep, so like 20, unless you go to like Erie or up into some of the New York lakes. And I've always, with the low profile of the head, it's less that I can get caught on it, and it can just push through real easy, and it's normally enough weight that I can get it down there, but not too much weight to where it drops real quick. Can you give some advice as to matching colors with blade or skirt? So what I found to work a lot, if I'm using a lighter color like a shad or white peppered or even um, like a something trying to mimic something that basically a color that's trying to mimic something that's live or a fish or something like that. I've always had success using a silver blade over using the darker kind of bronze or a copper. If I go like a fire tiger color, I will normally throw a bronze with a bronze Colorado on it, and I've that's normally a real good one for me is using the fire tiger with the bronze Colorado. But this company I've been using now, I mean, he kind of makes them for me a little bit and has me try different stuff. He has one that he made me. It's using a black and blue with a black head, and he actually took the blades and painted them black, and I've done pretty good with that. But he's taken them, painted them purple. Um, I try to keep the match, but I've also gone and thrown in different colors and metallic patterns on them to try to make it stand out a little bit from the normal one you see every day, just because the fish will be more interested in it and want to see what it is, and hopefully will hit it for you. Next question is, what depth is associated with clear water as well as stained water? For me, there's not normally depth. Like if you've been up to Champlain or Oneida, you go out there, you can see probably down about 10 feet. Or even like up on the St. Lawrence River, you can see down a good ways. If I get on the water and I can see down a couple feet, I'm normally calling it clear. If you look at it and you can't see in it at all, or it has like a brown stain to it or an algae bloom to it, I'm normally referring to it as stained water. Next question is, what brand do you use most? Like I said, the majority of the brand I use is, I'll show you a label. It's hard to see it with the glare of the box. I use this company, Slambo Lures, just because he can make me what I want. If I'm taking one off of Cabela's shelf, I normally will go to a Strike King for the small ones, and for a little bit of a bigger one, I'll go with a Strike King or the name of the one, Ishman Rose on it. I think it's called Bling or something like that. I'll use that for the bigger ones if I have to get one off a store shelf. Another question is, do you ever tip swim baits on spinner baits? I never have. I have fished with people who have, and they've done good with it. I've never done that. If I'm with how I am, if I'm gonna tip it with something like that, I'll throw it on like a chatterbait just because it's more streamlined and it kind of gets the same motion. But I've seen people do that. I've also seen people tip the back with another spinner, with like another small willow blade, also to kind of give it a little bit more of a presentation. I've never done it though. I'd say about the most I've done is tip it with put a trailer hook on it, or tip it with a kind of the back of a the back of a Zoom fluke. No one says, what is the best knot to use? I've always used I always refer to it as the Berkeley knot. The Rapella knot. That's the one I've always used, and I've never had a problem with it. I know there's a couple other ones out there that work just as well, but I've always used that one, and I've never really had a problem with it. I've never had the knot break for it. If anything, I've had the line break from like abrasion and areas on it that have got damaged. But since I've switched to using the ball 6 line, I've actually dock fished with their fluorocarbon and have had fish wrap it around docks and pulled them out. Got a little bit of abrasion and stuff on it, and I've never snapped their line. I'm with them with spinnerbaits. I'm using about 15 pound test, and I've never had a line break. I have another question. So, do you use trailer hooks, and if so, do you keep the hooks separate from the rubber retainer? I do. I have used trailer hooks, and when I do it, I actually use a tool that's called the Hook Pal, or the Trailer Hook Pal. What it does is it's about an anodized aluminum rod about that long. It uses those little discs that you put in the one end and pop the hook on. You put one on the actual hook, then you put your trailer hook on, and then you pop the second one on. And what it'll do is when they push together, it'll actually lock it right at the end of your hook. So I never really use the rubber retainers on. That's how I do it, and I've actually liked them better and how they hold it on, and I also use it with some of my soft plastics like on Senkos too, and it helps the longevity of that Senko because of wear and stress of them. Any other questions out there? I'll give it a minute or two here. If not, you'll get a thank you email, and on that's attached my email address, and you can feel free to send me any questions or anything like that, and I'll make sure I'll get them back to you as soon as I get them, and I can get around to answering them for you. Don't look like there's any more questions. I appreciate everyone taking time out of their day and coming on and listening to my webinar. Like I said, if you have any questions that come up, feel free to send me an email. I'll get back to you as soon as I can on it. I'll make sure to answer it with as much info as I possibly can. I appreciate you taking time out of your day, and thank you for attending.